Now available for pre-order on Kindle. Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Pre-order your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace on Kindle today. I got a couple of comments from some upset female viewers regarding my video about the late Latoya Acree. And now these viewers were upset about me making my commentary that your Ms. Acree, who lost her life because her son shot and murdered her in her driveway, was a beta male, and they were upset about the fact that I was talking about the dysfunctional way that Ms. Acree may have possibly raised her son. Now, these viewers are looking to try to use shaming language to try to give an excuse to Ms. Acree regarding the dysfunctional way her son has been behaving. But I have to ask a critical question to those women. Who raised this boy to become a man? And when you listen to the answer to that question, all the answers all point to Ms. Acree. Now, I came to that conclusion regarding this whole situation because it's one that I have seen numerous times in my life, and it is one that I have heard many other YouTubers like David Carroll talk about as related to the dysfunctional way these boys grow up. And when I look at the whole situation with the late Latoya Acree, every finger points at her as related to the son that she wound up having. Now, one of these viewers wants to say that the boy was a bad seed, but no, I can't say that the boy was a bad seed because the seed was planted by the mother, and there are so many mothers out here who plant these kind of seeds, and eventually they grow up to become the children of the corn. And as these children grow up like stalks in these single parent households, what happens is as these boys start to enter adolescence, that's when a lot of these single mothers wind up becoming completely overwhelmed because the boy becomes a full 6 feet tall. He starts to build some muscle. His voice starts to deepen, and the mother starts to lose control because the boy in his adolescence is testing boundaries, and as he's testing boundaries, he's seeing that the 5 foot tall mother, who probably weighs about 120, 130 pounds, cannot challenge him physically. And because she can't challenge him physically, this winds up overwhelming her. And like I pointed out in the man crisis, you get several outcomes. You get a mother who winds up upset and frustrated. You get a mother who just is completely overwhelmed, and you get a mother who just practically winds up shutting down as a result because she can't control this boy, and she's at her wit's end because this teenage boy with this deep voice, these larger muscles, and this tall body is not only testing the boundaries that she created, but he's breaking those boundaries, and there's nobody there to stop him from breaking those boundaries. And if there were a father in the home, he would be the one to go out here and reinforce those boundaries to let that boy know that he is still a child and put some limits on him. But when there is no father in the home, what happens is this boy continues to push boundaries because he starts to smell himself, because now that he can finally ride the bus and come home all by himself, he's thinking that he's a man, but in most cases, he's still a little boy who just doesn't even understand anything about the world. And because he thinks he knows everything, he's out here just running wild. And that's the case that happened here as related to Latoya Acree and her son. This boy was running wild. She could not control him. And because she couldn't control him, this boy wound up, his mouth rolled to check, his backside couldn't cash. He got into a fight somewhere and got himself arrested. And this was what led to him winding up jamming himself up. And after he jammed himself up, his mother decided to finally put him out of the house. But the damage had already been done because this boy had never had anybody set a line for him from minute one, and he never had no male authority there to get him in order physically. So this is what happens to many teenage boys out here. They wind up, again, they get into adolescence, they start being able to take a bus somewhere and come back, and they start running wild. And then once they get themselves jammed up, then they want to come back to mommy after they get arrested. But in this case, mama thought, oh, I'm going to put the boy out the house now because he's just completely out of control. But this boy was so out of control that he came back to the house with a firearm because he wanted to go back to mama. And because, again, this is a codependent relationship that they're having, he decides that if mama won't let me back in the house, I'm going to force my way back into the house. And this boy then winds up murdering his mother in the driveway of the home, taking her life. But they want to sit there and tell me he's a bad seed. No, this bad seed was cultivated by a single mother. Like many of the single mothers I did research on, not only for my book, The Man Crisis, but for what the blog I did, Ways Single Mothers Destroy Their Sons. Now, these women think I don't know anything about these single mothers, but I grew up in the South Bronx with a lot of single mothers, and I have seen this dysfunctional paradigm play ever since I was about 12 or 13 years old, and I was attending IS 148 in the Bronx. And I saw these boys grow up to become these children of the corn. I saw them grow up to become completely out of control. I grew up to see a lot of these guys winding up going crazy, and I wound up seeing a lot of these guys falling through the cracks of life again. And you'll have many of these women, these moms, saying, oh, this wasn't my fault, he was a bad seed. But who raised and cultivated that seed and went out here and let this seed grow up to become a child of the corn? Again, critical question that is rhetorical, because you can't say that this was the father's doing, because the father wasn't in the picture based on just the last name of the son. Because if we look at the son, his name is completely different, and they're sitting there saying, oh, she was doing a concert about domestic violence. But again, you raised this boy to think he was the man of the house, and this man felt upset that he was not allowed to have authority in his home. So a lot of these women, they want to sit here and make excuses as related to things, but they don't want to see the harsh reality as related to the Frankenstein monster they create. And then they want to go out here and say it's other things. But at the end of the day, this boy learned his culture from you. He learned his values from you. And the reason why this boy was out of control is because he was not given any sort of discipline or structure from a father. And because he didn't have a father in his life to go upside his head or put a boot in his backside, this is why this boy went out of control, because he had no man in the house to give him a hard boundary, no man to set order in that home, and had no man to establish a authority in that home to let that boy know that he was not the man of the house, because a boy who has a father in his life is not going to go back to his mother's house and murder her. And again, this boy was going crazy because he had nobody there to give him any sort of structure, nobody there to give him any sort of order, and he's sitting there with loaded firearms getting into fights, And that's all because that nobody wants to hold the mother accountable. Now, I'm sorry that this woman wound up passing away, but this, again, is what happens when there is no father in the home to give a boy structure and order, because he's thinking he's the order, he's thinking he's the authority, and he's thinking he's the man of the house, and he's thinking you're putting him out of the house, so he's going to try to punish you for putting him out of the house because he doesn't respect your authority. And again, I've seen this story play multiple times in my life just growing up here in the South Bronx. But these women want to try to give this woman an excuse, but at the end of the day, there's no excuse to give, because these women, they came out here and talked about how they could raise boys to become men, but we see that they're not capable of raising a boy to become a man, and they're trying to make excuses and trying to use shaming language to make me feel bad. But I can't. I look at this whole situation again. I've seen this play multiple times in my life. So I knew what the outcome was when I made the video, and sadly I know the outcome that's going to happen for this boy now that he has been arrested, and now that he'll be convicted probably for the murder of his mother. He's headed for life in prison, and when he's doing life in prison, he's going to be dealing with not only Bubba and Tiny trading him and his backside for some Little Debbie snack cakes, some Fritos chips, ramen noodles, cans of soda, and cups of coffee. He's going to be also dealing with those inmates, Bubba and Tiny, beating him down. And as he's being beaten down and his booty traded away for commissary, he's going to really lament taking the life of his mother. And he's really going to feel the pain, because at this point, he has nobody there to care for him. He has nobody in his life now. And that's all due to the fact that he did not know how to navigate through his emotions. He never learned discipline. He never learned self-control. And he's going to regret taking the life of his mother. But at the end of the day, it was the way she raised him that turned him into this dysfunctional male, because the bad seed that everybody wants to say that he was planted by the mother, and the mother was the one who raised him and did not go out here and bend that snapling and train up a child in the way that they should go. Because in order to really raise a child and train them up in the way that they should go, you need a father in the home to teach a boy to become a man. And if you don't have that father in the home, you wind up in situations like this, where these boys run wild, and the boy winds up going from being a boy to growing up to becoming a male in crisis. Now, if you want to learn about the ways single mothers destroy their sons, you can look at the classic blog I did, Ways Single Mothers Destroy Their Sons, by clicking the link to my blog. And if you also want to learn more about how boys like this become the monsters, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also pick up The Man Crisis on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.